Revelation 2426. From the 30th of July 1942. Resistance to God delayed embodiment as a man. Lovelessness. New Earth. Epochs of redemption. The time of development was so measured for the spiritual that it was completely sufficient to become free from the form, for what does not want to bow before God in time also disregards every further possibility of higher development, and only the hardest form can still awaken the urge for freedom, but by no means the last embodiment on earth, where the spiritual no longer feels its fetter so oppressively. Although its rebelliousness was broken through the inconceivably long time of being bound in so far as it decided to be of service, thus it was now able to go through the many stages of higher development, yet it gave up this will again in the last stage as a human being and made no use of any possibilities to finally liberate itself. It resists God anew, which is now expressed in increased unkindness. And therefore this time of redemption is ended. The spirit enters a new period of development, thus it is banished again and now forced into inactivity, which it now feels twice after the state of partial freedom it had already reached. This spiritual turnaround, the spiritual regression, also necessitates a new shaping of creation, which is to serve this spiritual again as a dwelling place. It necessitates a completely different design and composition of that which is now intended for the spiritual as an outer form. Because this spiritual does not cover the same course on earth, but it needs both stronger fetters as well as other activity as soon as it is again admitted to such. And consequently the earth, which now comes into being, will have to show new creations which completely deviate from those of the old earth. The earth will be shaped differently and offer the spiritual countless new possibilities to develop upwards. Such a reshaping of the earth has been planned since eternity, for God has known since eternity about the opposing will of people who will animate the earth at the end time of this redemption period. But before that he still uses all means to persuade the spiritual to give up its resistance in order to spare it another bound state through endless times. The last means, however, are suffering and earthly adversity to such an extent that people have to take the path to God if they are not completely hardened in spirit and completely renounce Him. But then any return to God is impossible. The spiritual being has to undergo a renewed process of change, for even in the beyond there is no possibility of development for this spiritual being, since it lacks all love. Thus also all knowledge, and only knowledge in the beyond makes spiritual progress possible. But the souls which end their earthly life in extreme unkindness are in deepest darkness and can no longer reach the light, and the repeated path through creation is the only way which, after another infinitely long time, leads to embodiment as a human being and thus can one day bring final liberation. Yet this renewed path on earth is so agonizing that the most severe suffering people have to go through on this earth can only be regarded as a mercy, since it can save the spiritual substance, the human being's soul, from another earthly path if it is recognized for what it is, as a means used by God to bring the apostate spiritual substance back to Himself. Amen.